Arganissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.arganissima.com. Arganissima, New York. Your beauty.
Welcome back to the iHealth channel, the Fit and Fab channel, and iHealth Radio with your host, Hurricane H. And I have a fellow podcaster with me today, and we're going to take you on a journey that is dear to my heart and to his heart because he lives off this thing. I mean, he loves what we're going to discuss today, and I think you're going to enjoy it. And because it is something we know about, maybe we probably do some of it, maybe, but we might have a little bit of a vague understanding of how it works and what's out there, what's new, what's happening, what's good, what's bad. And again, I'm always kind of a little bit of suspenseful in the beginning of my shows, and just to give you a little intrigue here. But I'm not going to do more of that. So here's the deal: I have George Batista with me, and he has his own company, and it's Platinum Nutritionals. And we'll talk about where you can, touch base with him and his website at the end of the show. But really, we're going to talk about the benefit of supplements. What are supplements, and how's that in the nutrition world? And is that even good? Is that bad? And all the different, myths about nutrition in a way, and the supplements in our dietary, day-to-day lives. So with that being said, George, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I am. I'm psyched. And, you and I, we connected, and I think there's value that, we can bring. And of course, like I said, people think they know supplements. People know nutrition, or at least know of nutrition. We all eat. we all throw stuff in our bodies, and what level of eating we do and what could be worth it for us can be bad and whatever. I mean, there's so many things. And, I've had so many shows that we've talked about, different plant-based, diets and different, for diabetes, for non-diabetes, for children. We've talked about a lot of things, and we even had specials that we talked about specific vitamins, like, or minerals. And, but overall nutrition is pretty robust. I mean, it's tons of things out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, first of all, you do have a podcast, right? And it talks about this.
Yes.
And as you said, you cover things that are stuff. So you tell us a little bit about yourself first and your background, and then let's take it from there.
Okay, great. So I grew up in New York, Bronx. I grew up in the Bronx,
baby.
And I was a very, very active kid. I was into martial arts, right? You just like you, right? I was into martial arts. I was always into sports, bodybuilding, all that type of stuff. So I was very, very active. But through that period, my diet was terrible. Okay, I pretty much lived on pizza and Chinese food, pretty much for the most part. So even though I looked good, but I felt terrible. And I ended up, through those years, I ended up dealing with a lot of chronic issues. So I ended up with I had chronic bronchitis every year. I had chronic sinus infections. I had very bad allergies. I had stomach issues, bad back. I mean, you name it. I was a mess inside, So I tried to see what I can do to clean it up. I would go to my general practitioner and say, listen, I need help. What can I do here? And they really didn't have any answers for me. They would say, oh, just take this medication, take this over-the-counter medication, that type of thing. But it wouldn't really help. It would stop the symptoms for a while, but really wouldn't get to the cause of the problem. So what ended up happening is you get to one of those moments where you just say, I've had it. I've had enough. I'm frustrated, and I need to figure this out, right? So I said, if the doctor's not going to help me, I need to help myself. So what I did was I started to dive into nutrition. And you hear about supplements, and you hear, and back then it wasn't as big of a thing as it is now. So, I started diving into magazines and books about supplements and things like that. Then I saw one quote from a gentleman named Linus Pauling. who's a very famous scientist. He won 2 Nobel Prizes. And one of the quotes he said was, you can trace back every ailment and every illness to a nutritional deficiency or mineral deficiency. So that completely blew me away. So I said, okay, there's got to be something to this. So I dove into the world of supplements. I started taking supplements. I changed my diet. And little by little, throughout those years, things started to disappear. So I started to get less bronchitis. The allergies started to go away. The stomach issues started to go away, everything. So that's when the light bulb moment went off. And I said, okay, there's something to this. So the better I got, the more deeper I dove into it. And sure enough, I got so deep into it that I eventually ended up getting certified in nutrition because I was just so obsessed with it. I got into the, all the micronutrients and I got into the nerdy stuff, and started sharing it with friends and family, saying, hey, try this supplement, try that. And they looked at me like, yeah, whatever, supplements, that type of thing. But I was like, listen, you got to try this stuff because I'm telling you, it works. And then sure enough, as time went along, I started to work with clients little by little, especially online, started work with clients all over the place. And then I did that for a number of years. And then I said, you know what? I said, working one-on-one with clients is good, but how can I help the most number of people? So then I said, why not do a podcast and share the knowledge that I have and the passion of health that I have, share it with the rest of the world and see if I can help some, more people, most people in one shot. So I started my podcast, which is called Wellness Talk. And there I go over the latest nutrition and the latest studies on health and healing and all that type of stuff. And I put up my articles on the website, and it's become popular. And now it's in like 3 or 4 countries now. And it's going very well. So now I'm more focused on the educational side of things. And pretty much what I do is I tell my story of how nutrition and supplements and diet help me recover from all those things, and educate people on how to do it.
Wow, George, thank you for that intro. That's pretty big and deep, and that's a lot of stuff, and we're gonna have to really break it down. But the first things, let's go back in time, because I think that people are listening and watching right now. They, we have audiences from different ages and age groups, and the nutrition world doesn't end, with any group or start with any group. I mean, everybody has to have some sort of a nutrition, intake, and they need to know what to do with it. But
right.
Some of the early ages is where the mistakes are made.
Right.
And I think we can take a few minutes to just talk about that, because you said it when you were younger. I was younger. I know how it is. We all feel that the world is ours. we are, invincible. We can do whatever. We hit, we can bench press things and do stuff, crazy stuff. And there's nothing. And nutrition at that point is limited to whatever we like, So pizza, whatever it could be. And I mean, it all tastes good, right?
Right.
But the value, the nutritional value of those things, at a young age. I mean, my kids are going through the same phase right now. I always complain, like, you guys don't eat anything of value.
Yeah.
Everything. I mean, again, I'm not beating. I love pizza too, but you need to know when to eat it and what kind of pizza and so on and so forth. I mean, over time you learn to appreciate some of these things, and every now and then you indulge. But as a kids, that's their taste bud. That's all they want. They just want that nice salty and tangy style. But that's about it. But it's not really anything valuable to them. So your body needs a lot more than just starch and carbs and sauce. That I'm not even sure what kind of sauce it is, because I mean, not every pizza is made with the real stuff, kind of cheese. So there's lacks of a lot of basic elements of nutrition in our diet. And I think our society overall, in the new age, the last few years with the industries, the food industries and stuff like that, we've evolved into all these wannabe food. I mean, let's call it what I mean. They're good. I mean, listen, candy and all this stuff. There's a lot of chemical, a lot of sugars, a lot of salt, but very little value of nutrition, little minerals in there, vitamins. I mean, my kids. I mean, sometimes I look at their food. There's no vitamins.
Yeah,
there's none. I'm literally like baffled. Like, how can you possibly live with no vitamins in your diet? Or minerals, because they don't eat anything that has values like lentil, soup, for example,
Right.
lentils, right? Or whatever. Yeah, just basic beans. I mean, rice and beans are good. But my kids would not even touch that, right? So
Mhm.
it's just a simple concept, but there is stuff in those things that is good for you. I mean, beans are healthy, and there's
Yeah,
there's
sure.
good, construct there. But and the list goes on and on and on, right?
Right.
They get all these flavored drinks and stuff, but they're all kind of syrups and colored and artificial flavors and things, but nothing of real, healthy value. And therefore, to your point, you experienced it. Your body was in top shape, but it's still not doing good. You had all these after effects or
Right.
adverse reactions in terms of allergies
Mhm.
and different things. And you went to the doctors. The doctor didn't relate that to a nutrition deficit. It was
Right.
more like, well, try this, it may help you. And that's the other thing. Some of these things you have to do some serious lab work and blood testing and stuff like that to even figure out if you have some lack of these things. And when you do a full workout, I had the naturopath doctor, that's recurring on the show, and we talked a little bit about that you
Mhm.
need to request a
Yes.
full spectrum, lab work on your blood and stuff to see all the deficiencies you have. And that's not, that everybody is going to write it up unless you ask. It's not
Yeah.
happening. And so your example is the example of millions and all over the world. I mean, you think you're strong because your body is going to take it, but it's like having a brand new car that you're just going to like floor all over the place and burn it out. The engine is robust for about a couple of years, maybe it will run, and then it's going to shut down. And
Exactly.
that's what we do to our bodies when we're younger, right? We
Right.
think that we do whatever we can. The body's not complaining at that time.
Right.
But as
Right.
you progress in age, it starts like, ooh.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I remember one of my good friend, doctor, he had said something. We were talking because my mom is diabetic, and we talked about
Mhm.
um, he tried to describe this, like the diabetes concept. And he said, your pancreas is supposed to generate enough insulin over a period of your life.
Sure.
It's designed to live with you until
Right.
you die. But, it's going to generate, I don't know, a certain amount of insulin in that period of time. Now you come in and you just bombard the body with all the extra sugars. So now you put that pancreas to work overtime. And so instead of it lasting, it's the same thing with a car. It's the same thing with anything, right? If you use it over, more frequently, it's going to have more miles.
Yep. Yep.
You can have a
Correct.
brand new car with like 100,000 miles. It's not going to be worth anything in the marketplace.
Exactly.
Same guy. So that's kind of like, and it stuck with me. This was like 30 years ago when I heard this, but it stuck with me in my life because it made sense.
Yeah.
And so understand that your body has to live with you. And for as long as you're alive, if you want it to be fit or at least to be in a good
Mhm.
shape. And if you put the wrong ingredients, know that it's gonna fail you sometimes.
Right. Right. Right.
And it's like you go on the road without a maintenance and your car just breaks down. This will break down too.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
But you did experience it. And
Yes.
so that was just my little, feed
Mhm.
on what you said. But so let's take it on your side. You went to the doctors.
Yes.
They did not attribute anything to it.
No.
So how did you discover that this was the reason behind it? Was it because you were reading or because you went somewhere else?
No, it was. It's funny because I didn't go to at the time, and I was young. I was probably in my 20s at the time. I didn't even know what a naturopathic doctor was or functional medicine doctor was or anything like that. So I would just go to my regular doctor, and we all know, and I found out later that doctors don't get any training in nutrition, so they're not, that's not their expertise. But when you're young, right, your parents tell you go to the doctor. They know everything when it comes to health and medicine, so that's what you do, right?
Mm.
So I had to take it upon myself. So again, through a lot of I was working out so much, I used to get a lot of these health and fitness magazines, Muscle and Fitness and all these things,
Yes.
because I was doing all this working out. So in a lot of those magazines, you would see the advertisements for not only the amino acids, but you would see for the multivitamins and for all these things. So I was like, okay, well, let me check that out. So there was a lot of reading that I did. I started to get into some nutrition books as well. And there was a theme that kept coming up in the books and even in the magazines. And they were talking about nutritional deficiencies. And I'm saying, well, I mean, what's the big deal? Don't we get our nutrition from our food anyway, right? And so that was my thought process behind it. But then as they went on to explain that you really don't. It's pretty much impossible to get all the nutrition you need from your food. So then I said, okay. I said, so if that's the case, then I have to be deficient in something, because there's something going wrong inside me. There's got to be some deficiencies. And they talked about magnesium deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, vitamin C deficiency, all this. So I said, all right, well, let me start with this multivitamins. Let me see if that starts to correct the issues. Let me start, also got to change the diet, because even you can take supplements, but if your diet is horrible, doesn't matter, right? You still got to change the diet and eat good food. So that had obviously a lot to do with it as well. So, it was really just a lot of reading that I did, but the theme kept coming up: nutritional deficiency. So I said, okay, I'm going to keep filling it. I'm going to keep bringing it in until something happens. And the thing is that, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, it wasn't a sexy thing. It wasn't a flashy thing. It was every single day taking the supplements. It was every single day watching what I ate, doing my exercise, doing those things. It was very simple. It wasn't anything flashy. And all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I didn't get bronchitis this year. Or wait a minute, my allergy, my seasonal allergies all of a sudden didn't pop up, or they're a lot lighter than they were. So that, and again, the light bulb goes off. And I said, all right, so maybe it's these supplements. So let's keep doing them. So of course it's trial and error. And then sure enough, that's how I figured it out. And then once I really dove in and, started to get into the certifications, then I was like, wow. And then that's when you start to realize how deep in a nutritional deficiency people really are in the world, and why they're experiencing inflammation and oxidative stress and all that, because that's exactly what I was experiencing. So it just blew me away.
Well, George, thank you for clarifying that. And again, you made a very deep comment there about it is difficult to have full nutrition, meaning to have everything that your body needs. I mean, it is not impossible, but it's difficult, because in order for you to do that, I mean, you have to really sample almost every kind of food out there,
Right.
and in specific quantities, and and kind of have a nice little balanced diet across the board between your meals and the quantities you eat, and it has to have some greens, some vegetables, some fruits, and some meats, and all the stuff. So to do that, could possibly work, but the problem, to your point, is that it's not available to everyone. Right. I mean, it is and it's not. I mean, it's funny. I make it sound like it's not available. There's plenty of food out there. I mean, you go to supermarkets, you go to even to just natural markets where you can buy really stuff that is produced from a farm. It doesn't matter. The point is it's available, but putting it all in practice and having that available to you in the form of nutrition and meals is another story.
That's true.
And we live in a society that we do eat out a lot.
Right.
That's another one. I mean, home meals is a big deal, but who has the time, right?
Exactly.
And younger folks, they don't care. I mean, we talk about the freshman years in college. I mean, it's pizza, whatever is in the morning you find around, you just grab and eat, right? But those things kind of like almost stick with you for a long time. And those 10 years of your life between, 18 and maybe 30, is where you do some damage to your body. And a lot of it, can stay with you for long if you don't cleanse. And to cleanse, you have to know what your problems are. And you said deficiencies. Now, deficiencies, you can have maybe nothing or just little quantities is not sufficient. Mm-hmm. You see, I mean, that's the other thing. That doesn't mean you're not getting it. You might be getting some vitamin C, some vitamin D. I mean, one thing for sure, for example, vitamin D, huge deficiency across the nation. All the northern states and I think the whole North America is a big deal of vitamin D. I mean, unless you go like further south where there's enough sun, but the northern states, I mean, it's cold and there's very little stuff and you're not getting enough. And it's a big deal. Everybody's got some sort of vitamin D deficiency or shortage in their body. Yeah. And that's why you need to, and in the pandemic, and we'll talk about it shortly.
Absolutely. No. So, and what you learn through this whole thing is that one, we can go back and look at the soil, right? Because if you think about it, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, people were able to get most of the nutrition from the food because the soil was, and the crops and everything were grown different, right? And then when they did the studies now of the soils lately, you realize they're very much devoid of all these minerals, right? Because you think about it. So, and the basic concept, and one of the concepts that I talk about on my show is a very simple concept. The human body needs essential nutrition. That essential nutrition is what the body runs on. It's the oil, it's the gas of the car, okay? And that essential nutrition at its basic point is vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and omega-3 fatty acids. Really, if you break it down to the molecular level, those are the four things that the body needs to run. Because even when you eat your food, what does it get broken down to? It gets broken down to those four categories, okay? So you have to look at your nutritional tank and say, am I getting all my vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and fatty acids? Well, if the soil is not enriched anymore, because the body cannot make minerals, right? The minerals come from the soil, okay? So if the soil is depleted of the minerals, then you take in that food and then you cook it, obviously. Then it's got to be eaten and it goes through the digestive process. How much of those minerals are you actually going to get? It's a very small amount. And again, when they've done the studies on the minerals, I did a whole podcast on that, on the actual figures and the studies that they've done on the soils. And it was scary how little it was compared to 100 or 200 years ago. So we need those micronutrients. That's what our body needs. So what do? So obviously we are going to get some from our diet, right? You're going to get some of that. But if you're not getting everything, because not everybody has a perfect diet, right? Not how many people eat 4 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every single day? Not many people do, okay? So right there, you're going to be behind. So the whole idea of supplementation is that you're bridging that gap between where your nutrition stops when you eat something and what you actually need, okay? And so what I say is, even the New England Journal of Medicine actually talked about it in 2002. They talked about that every adult should be on at least a multivitamin, okay? Because they realize most people are not getting the nutrition. And it's insurance. A multivitamin, just for example, a multivitamin is insurance against, putting the odds in your favor. So you have less risk of the cancers and the heart diseases and the diabetes and all these types of things, okay? So, but you've got to have this nutrition every single day. And this is the thing, because remember, your body is hit with the stresses of life. Every day your body's going through stress, right? What is it going through? It's going through physical stress, emotional stress, chemical stress. Those are the 3 basic stresses. And all that stress, what does it do? It depletes your nutrition, right? And the more stress you're under, the more nutrition gets depleted. So you have to refill that nutrition with those things, the vitamins and the minerals and the amino acids and the fatty acids. If you're not doing that, you're already behind. So it's only a matter of time, over time, if you're not replacing those things, where something's going to break, where something is not going to work properly, right? Because those vitamins, what they do is when they go into your system, they are called coenzymes. They actually attach to enzymes, and then those enzymes work in your body. Okay, so for example, vitamin D works with 3,000 enzymes. Magnesium works with over 400 enzymes in your body. So if you're not getting those, there are enzymes in there that are not working properly. So again, it's just a matter of time before something shows up as a symptom where you get oxidative stress, and then you have your illness, whatever it is.
I'm just like, you just throwing those figures. I'm like, wow. I mean, it's so simple yet so complicated.
Right.
I mean, really, it's not a rocket science process. I mean, we all know that you need all the stuff to function properly, but yet we're not doing enough to figure out whether we're lacking something or not.
Right.
And again, by default, like I said, just the way we eat, you should know that, to your point, that we're not getting enough. Because how many colored foods that we have in our plate? I mean, we have probably one vegetable if you're ready, you're lucky. Probably potatoes in the form of fries, right? Which
right,
is not really
exactly.
So you get yellow fries, and that's good for you, but that's not healthy. Then we can talk about that whole thing, with the oils and the fried food and all that. But really, it's even the stuff like, for example, they say eat breakfast, breakfast is champion, cereal. You
Mhm.
know, I've read so many things. I've, had different shows, and the consensus is that that's not even healthy.
Right.
You know, yeah, I mean, it does list a bunch of vitamins, but again, are those quantities even close to what you need or not? That's different. Are they the right vitamins? That's the other thing. Not all the vitamins, even vitamin D has different levels, magnesium has different levels,
Yeah.
but types that work differently, right? So,
Exactly.
so the fact is, people out there, and again, we talked about younger age, you
Mhm.
know, I mean, like as we get older, we either have already suffered some consequences of lack of this stuff. And even if you did a good job, your body's going to go through transformation and things are
Sure.
going to just start being less and less. So you definitely need to supplement.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm in the insurance world, and insure, one of those products that we prescribe to people at a certain age, because you need to give them that extra nutrition, right?
Right.
In the form of a liquid drink, but it
Right.
helps them kind of, and it's covered by insurance because you want these people to be healthier, right? And to maintain. But you don't have to get to that point, to your point, if you have a variety or diversified, food intake. However, you said something very important about the soils. I mean, unless you live somewhere in a, in a land where it's kind of like all natural farmland,
Right.
and you grow your stuff, there's a good chance. But even those farms, I mean, not all the farms right now are really by, bio farms or like, organic farms, 100%. I mean,
Right.
they still use different things that may not be, or the soil that they use is not really the best soil for nutrients and things. So, I mean, and some of this stuff is surface only. It's not deep. Minerals come from a deeper level.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about, iron is important,
Mhm.
obviously in quantities. I mean,
Sure.
your blood needs it and all the stuff. But how many people, one of the biggest deficiencies, for example, for pregnant women is iron deficiency.
Correct.
Calcium is another one that they're not getting enough of. And iron is actually a big deal,
Yeah.
Calcium is another big deal. And I just refer to those two because of pregnancy. I mean, when my wife was pregnant, we had kids, that was one of the things that we had to watch out for, because
Yeah.
you needed to get those supplements to make sure that there's
Yeah.
enough iron and calcium
Absolutely.
in the body, because you're gonna drain out as you feed the baby and stuff. So it was just very difficult. Well, this happens for everybody,
Yeah.
male, female, but now we know the problem is there,
Yes.
and I think everybody, but sometimes we know every problem is out there, but we just ignore it, or
Mhm.
we think that we are resolving it somehow.
Right.
But some of us are not making any change. You made the change.
Yeah.
Right. You figured it out, and you took a whole different 180 degrees towards how you looked at, your nutrition,
Right.
and made an impact. You saw the results in time. Now, this is not about nutrition only. You did the other stuff.
Yes.
You kept fit. You did
Yes.
your due diligence. You made sure you took everything else that you need to be doing, in addition to the proper. Now, let's talk about, well, first of all, you said something earlier I was going to ask you. You said you were looking to men's, fitness, or,
Mhm.
fitness magazine and all those things. I do recall those when they were popular, and they're still popular, but when in the beginning, there was a big
Right.
deal. You have all the Arnolds and all these
Right.
guys,
Right.
pictures, but you also, then you have all the first brands that started coming up. That's when, you start seeing the GNCs,
Yes.
and some of those, competitive, brands, that started getting, but they got into more like protein shakes and mass building and muscle building and amino acids to a degree,
Yeah.
but they were not big with vitamin supplements.
Exactly.
That came in later, to your point, as it was discovered that, hey, we need at least multivitamins out there.
Mhm.
Now, even the multivitamins, there's a full range of them. You go to stores, you'd be like, which one?
Yeah.
I mean, you have some of the standard ones you buy, everywhere in the Costco or BJ's, like the Centrum and all those.
Mhm.
But then you have so many other brands out there, and you have the
Sure.
organic, the vegan, the non-vegan, all kind of stuff out there. And not all of them really live up to the level that they need to. Now, I know you've done some research on that. So what can you tell us about that? Because I know people want to hear that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the first thing is, and you're absolutely right, the average person doesn't know. They don't know about multivitamins. They don't know. And typically when a person goes on a multivitamin, most people don't go on it because they just feel like going on it. A lot of times they'll go on it because maybe their doctor told them that they're dealing with an issue or something like that. Just like going to a nutritionist, right? Usually nutritionists see somebody from a doctor. If you're perfectly healthy, most people don't go to a nutritionist, So, but multivitamins are similar. They're kind of like almost a mystery, right? You hear about Centrum, you hear about all these things. But the problem is this, there's a couple of things. A lot of the multivitamins out there, especially in the big box stores, in the pharmacies, those multivitamins usually are sold by big corporations, and they're mass produced, okay? And because they're mass produced, they're cheaply made, and they have cheap ingredients. And the form of the vitamin makes a difference in how it's absorbed, okay? Now, a lot of people don't know that. Okay, so for example, when you take a multivitamin and you look at the back, you'll see the list of ingredients. It'll tell you what vitamins are in there. Well, next to that ingredient is going to be a parentheses that has the form that the vitamin is in. Okay, well, that could be an active form or a not so active form. Okay, there's a difference in that. So one of the things you have to look at is if you're getting your vitamins from a big box store or a pharmacy, for the most part, a lot of those vitamins not only are very cheaply made, but they have lots of fillers in it. They have lots of things that shouldn't be in there. Okay, so honestly, I would stay away from those multivitamins in general. Okay, now the supplements that I recommend, okay, are from companies that I've been with for a long time, that I have vetted, that I know that they are extremely transparent in what their supplement is in, what's in them and what is not in them, and they are fanatics about quality. Because remember, if you're going to take a supplement, number one, you don't want to waste your money. Number two, you want it to be safe and effective. And if you're giving it to friends and family, you want to make sure there's no issues with allergies and different things like that. So I honestly work with maybe 2 supplement companies and one major one that's on my website. And people, if they can definitely go on my website if they want to take a look at the companies that I work with. I've been working with one for 16 years because I've used their supplements and they are so effective. You wouldn't believe the things I've seen people recover from in using these supplements. So one of the things you have to look at is the forms that the supplement is in. And it can get very technical. For example, the B12 in a supplement will tell you a lot about that supplement, okay? Because it's going to tell you how that supplement is absorbed, okay? So, for example, you have, and just as an example, not to get technical, but B12, for example, can come in the form of cyanocobalamin or methylcobalamin. Well, cyanocobalamin is really not an active form of B12. Methylcobalamin is. Okay, so there's going to be a difference in the absorbability of that B12 when you take it. Now, here's another thing you have to think about. There are people in this world who have a genetic problem converting some of these supplements. My wife is one of them. Okay, so my wife actually had an issue with, she had high lead, and they found it in the blood test. And what they found was that her body was not converting the B12 and the folic acid properly because of a gene variation, okay? So if that happens, what ends up happening? You can't detox properly, right? So high lead, okay? You can end up with heart problems. You can end up with all different types of detoxification problems. So taking in the active form of B12 is going to help in that situation, because now the body does not have to activate it. It goes through, and it already is activated when it goes through that whole system, okay? So things like that make a huge difference. And again, this is why it's important when you're looking at supplements to work with a nutritionist, to work with a nutrition expert or a naturopathic doctor, functional medicine doctor, because these people know the proper supplements, and they know not only your issues, right? They know your biochemistry, they know what you come with, but they know what the best supplements are going to be for you, and they know the supplements that are going to be the most absorbable. So, I mean, the big takeaway is, if you really want to get on supplements and you're dealing with an issue, work with a nutritionist, work with a naturopath or functional medicine doctor, because they know what they're doing when it comes to that.
George, thank you for the clarification. Actually, that's pretty cool, the way you broke it down, because I think as simple as it sounds, it is very technical, and understanding which form, by the way, in the previous show, like I said, with, my recurrent naturopath, doctor. She covered that in a way that explains it. And again, to your point, the same vitamin works differently depending on
Right.
what level you take, or which type or form in the, I guess, the way it's made,
Right.
and how you're gonna absorb it in the body and what it can do and cannot do. But so in your research, possibly a question that would come up is, well, is there any, if I'm taking medicine, I'm taking this, would there be any challenge with that? I mean, can there be any conflict, for that, or something that we should be aware of?
Well, the first thing you do is, if you are on any kind of medication, you definitely work with your doctor on this. The doctor has to be on board with anything you're taking. Now, typically, a multivitamin, if it's made well from a very reputable company, for the most part, usually they're pretty safe to take with with medication, because again, that's nutrition. It's basic nutrition, right? I mean, if you're not getting it from the multivitamin, you got to get it from the food you have to eat. So whether you're on medication or not, you still have to get those vitamins and minerals in. So I would first talk to your doctor, just make sure they're on board with you taking a multivitamin or whatever it is that you want to take, because there are what's called contraindications, right? There are some, so for example, if somebody's on a blood thinner, they don't want to be taking a vitamin that's going to counteract that, right? That's one of the things you have to think about, right? So, vitamin K supplements, those types of supplements may interfere with a blood thinner, that type of thing. Or you don't want something that's going to thin your blood too much either, right? If you're already on a blood thinner. So one of the things, when I've worked with people in the past, the first question I ask them is, are you on medications? What medications are you on? That's the bottom line question, because it makes a big difference.
Well, it's funny you said that. This is just probably off, but you talked about the blood thinner, and I know it's used in poison.
Yes,
for the mice and the rats and
yes.
those. And then
Food.
if you take it or ingest it by mistake, vitamin K is your cure. so reverse that, and then we have an issue, right?
Exactly.
But you're right. Again, it's and best advice, and we always say this, whether fitness or wellness, always consult with your doctor. Make sure that there's no complications that can happen. Again, same thing. Allergies can happen. What kind of allergies you may? Some of these things combined with, maybe you have an allergy from eggs. I don't know, or peanuts, or something that is incorporated in that particular pill.
Sure.
And or whenever because some of these things they composited and they put together with other products to make them into a pill format or whatever. But you don't know those ingredients, and if you have an allergy, let's say you have mushroom allergies, and maybe it's included somewhere in there, you can have a big serious problem. So there's always that, and you want to make sure you consult with, depends on your condition. Nothing that we always say will be for everyone, but it's generic information that is solid. But then each individual has to look at themselves, at what that means to them. And you're right. I mean, overall, these should be nutrients that are available in nature, and we're going to have to take them anyway.
Exactly. You need them either way.
well, but you mentioned something important, because if the company that you're buying from is using cheap stuff, right? There's that, right? It's not the quality, and so therefore there may be other problems. But you have to find that right place, the right company. I mean, it's like I said, vitamins are everywhere. And he mentioned something about the multivitamin pill. I mean, one pill can be packed with a lot of stuff, but
sure.
but it's not going to replace a bunch of other things. I mean, conceptually you could have one pill with everything in it.
You definitely could, but you're right. I mean, again, the multivitamin is just to give you the general basic nutrition. That's what it's there for. It's to protect against the gaps in the diet. That's the main thing. And the other thing also that we have, and it's a tough situation, especially with people on medication, because the problem is, and I did a whole show on this last week actually, nutrition depletion due to medication. Okay, because unfortunately, these blood pressure medications, these cholesterol medications, these blood sugar medications deplete nutrition. Okay, and that's a problem, right? So even, so you're fixing one thing, but you're getting rid of all the stuff that can help you with the other stuff, so, and you could take a look at cholesterol medication, for example. What does cholesterol medication really do, right? It's designed to lower cholesterol, which it does, okay? But it acts in the liver. Well, yes, it stops the liver from synthesizing cholesterol, but it also stops the liver from synthesizing a very important nutrient, which is coenzyme Q10, right? Now, coenzyme Q10 is made in the liver. We all need coenzyme Q10. Why? Because coenzyme, what does it do? It helps your mitochondria. It helps you get energy from food. It helps your heart mitochondria. It helps your heart beat and rhythm. Okay. And it protects you from congestive heart failure and these types of things. Okay. But if you're suppressing that, okay, that's a problem. So that's another issue. And again, this is why the medication, that whole medication issue, when people are on these medications, it's tough it's a tough thing to navigate with supplements, because you have to be very, very careful. Again, you have to work with the doctor, and the doctor and nutritionists have to be on board with the same type of thing. So, but it can be done if it's done properly.
Well, again, you've covered actually the three stooges, which basically blood pressure and cholesterol and diabetes or sugar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those three, they come almost like, together in the body. When one starts, the rest follows.
Right.
And you're right. I mean, I've seen it with my own mom, and, she's been diabetic for 30 years, but you're right. She takes medicine for all those things, and they do have adverse reactions and different things. And she has to compensate, different ways to help out,
Sure.
I mean, yes, listen, they save lives. They do a good job to one thing. And there are people that may be even opposed to even those medications, because,
Right.
I mean, you can do a natural path and, and go literally just plant-based, and other, maybe Eastern medicine and with just herbs and things. And there are, studies that can, also work that way, but that's not your common medicine. That's not what you usually get for diabetes. Although there have been people that have seen tremendous results, going the other route.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. When you do this and you're trying to solve one problem, you have to look at what can be the outcomes, coming out of that stuff. And we always hear this. There's always a side effect. I mean, the scary part when you've watched a commercial on any drug, you don't want to watch the freaking damn commercial, because
two-thirds of it is all side effects. I mean,
I know, like, you could get this, blah, 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 blah.
Right, right. Exactly.
Why would I even take it? Now, obviously, you take it because there's no choice. It's important.
Right.
But you do take it with the conscience that, believe that it could also trigger some other problems.
Yeah.
Some of them are mild, some of them can be severe.
Right.
And that's a big deal. But you're right. I mean, now we've talked about supplements more in the vitamin, but minerals, and you mentioned a couple of minerals, but minerals are just as powerful, and they have, very key functions. And we've talked about a few, but then we talked about, like you said, amino acids.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Yes.
The omega-3, the
Yes.
fatty acids, and then that's, I think, more available in the fish and, fish supplements. But you're right. Like, for example, the best fish we have these days in the market is tilapia that is actually farm raised. I mean, what nutrition can you get?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
we stopped having tilapia for many years now.
Yes.
But like, you're not really, I mean, unless you live, by well, even the sea, depends where you are, because it could be polluted. So there's plenty. We had a show about mercury and heavy metals out in water. Forget about it. The stuff that you can get, from fishing there. But if you go deep sea fishing, maybe you get lucky and you get something that's healthy. Sometimes you get fish that is imported from other locations in the world, and maybe you can get that. But it's very difficult to really get the right stuff. And you're right, by taking a supplement for omega-3, for example, it's good for your bones and a lot of things. That makes a big difference, right? Inflammation, you mentioned that earlier. So that's the key element. And the other part is, like, there are companies I know that made a killing using these things. I mean, one of the ones, now it's funny because 30 years ago exactly, I tried to work for them.
Oh, really?
and that was Herbalife.
Oh yeah, I was in Herbalife for a while myself.
Yeah, I actually, funny true story. I actually went to a presentation in Manhattan, and at the end of that presentation, I was psyched. It sounded good. The guy looked, really, fully energized, fit, and he did a great job. So I was like really psyched. So I get out, I get locked, I get stuck in an elevator.
Oh, wow.
So I would never forget that instance. And then it happened to be like after this is again it's just off topic, but it's the fun thing. It's about we're on the show, right? So I get stuck, and Die Hard, the movie had just come up. It was already out, but when the scene he come out of the top, he opens that. I did that. I did that. So I told that to my kids, like, Dad, you crazy? That could have moved. At the time I didn't think. I just did it.
It's one of those things you never forget.
You never forget. Well, again, that's my connection to Herbalife.
Right.
Herbalife's been really in the market for a long term.
Sure.
And they still kick in, and they're out there, and they do more now than ever. Sure. At the time, there were a few pills, but they had a full cocktail of everything that you possibly can do. It was supposed to be all natural ingredients. And I actually tested it, and it felt good, but I just didn't continue with it because you had to invest in it and stuff.
Exactly.
So it was a different story. But that was one of the offshoots of brands that came up, into this world of turning. There was a need, there was an interest, and there was a demand, and so that was a very cool tactical a sale pitch, and they were like a multi-marketing company level, but it was selling a product that was geared to help this deficiency. Right. Now this is not new. It's been in place for years.
Sure.
And again, you got all the GSEs and all the vitamin store. What is it? The
vitamin shop. Yeah.
Vitamin shop that came out also as a brand, and all of them are competing against each other. But the purpose really is there's a whole market.
Yes.
And that's because the fact of the matter is that our nutrition is liking all that stuff.
Right. Exactly.
If that was all incorporated in what we eat daily, we wouldn't have a problem.
Right. You're right. No, you're right. And the supplement company, like you said, is become huge. But still, if you think about it, there's still that competition, not only amongst the supplement companies themselves, but there's still that competition from mainstream medicine, because mainstream medicine still has, there's always been this push and pull between mainstream medicine and supplements, and pharmaceuticals and supplements and these types of things, So, and unfortunately, because of the way the medical system is designed, right, you have to kind of go through the back door if you want to see a functional medicine doctor or a naturopath and get and know how to get the proper supplements versus going to a doctor, right? Because half of the time insurance is not going to pay for this stuff, and even these tests, like the test that you were talking about, right? I did a blood panel that they took 35 vials of blood from me, and yeah, it was. I'm surprised I stood up after that. It was
you donated blood, dude. That's
I pretty much
a couple of pints.
Exactly. But what you saw in this, it was literally like 10 to 12 pages of stuff. But I got to see vitamins and minerals and all these types of things that I would have never seen if I had gone to a regular, just a traditional doctor. Okay. And it blew my mind, because I got to see there was deficiencies in this and things that I had to work on. You don't see that. You don't see that when you go to your traditional doctor. So again, there's still always the competition, because the pharmaceuticals, they're on TV. They're saying, look, you got to come here, you got to come here, you got to, and so you really still have to seek out the supplements on the back end if you really want to know what they're all about and that type of thing. So it's still tough.
Well, that's a big deal, and you're right. Obviously, big pharma is big pharma.
Yeah, of course. Right.
and it's powerful, and it's got a good lobby, and they know how to promote themselves well. They buy a lot of ads. They have the money to do it, and they have a lot of research and development, budget, and so they do a lot of work. But so one thing that is very maybe for people they might know, may not know, but most of these supplements do not go through FDA approval.
Correct.
Correct. And that's the other thing. And you're reading all these supplements. This is not being vetted out by the FDA. So they do this, and that takes away a little bit of the credibility, because the seal of FDA, forget about it, right?
Exactly. It's they do have to go through a manufacturing process, so they must be processed and they must be made in a certain way, and that is I forget what it's called, but there's a term for it. But they do have to go through a strict process in order just to be made. Okay, or else the FDA will be in there, and actually the FDA, even if a few years ago, there was a couple of supplement companies that got taken out because they weren't following those, generally recognized processes that they were supposed to be going through. So they do, but again, you're right. They're not, like, you can't say this supplement is FDA approved, because it really doesn't work that way. Okay. Because remember, at the end of the day, with pharmaceuticals, okay, the way it's said is that only a pharmaceutical drug can cure a disease. And that's actually written. That's actually the law. So you can't say, well, vitamin C may help with this or cure that. You can't say that. So obviously, and the FDA has tried to limit supplements in the past, but there has been a revolt from the supplement industry and also people taking supplements, and have fought that off because they realized that supplements are very, very popular. But I can see still, even down the line, I can see them trying to limit it in certain ways. Because again, it's still, at the end of the day, it's still direct competition to the pharmaceutical companies.
Well, it's amazing that pharmaceuticals have not gotten into it themselves. well, some do.
Have.
Some do, yeah. Some
yes,
do, but not. I mean, imagine they will take over the market, and then they can secure it.
Yeah.
But I think, to your point, there is a level of flexibility. I mean, they can't wipe up a whole industry. Yeah. Then it becomes like a monopoly. So they want to allow the ability to have that, and of course, to your point, there's lobby on both sides.
Yeah.
And there's a good following. Especially there's a whole awakening right now in the last decade or so in terms of plant-based and organic food. I mean, there's a whole new chains that have emerged in the last couple of decades, really, in organic levels, and what do you call it, vegetarian, vegan, natural products, and it's a big market right now. So
absolutely,
to just stop that, the FDA is going to have a big problem.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But nevertheless, some people may kind of shy away from taking supplements because they believe in that FDA, endorsement, right? Right. This is FDA. FDA can go wrong too. I mean, there's a lot of drugs that have been approved by FDA that turned out to be disasters.
Yes,
and there are lawsuits and class action suits and things like that out there. But it is that. I mean, the FDA's role is to kind of look at things and regulate to a degree, to you say the process and how it is and maybe the contents, and they do their best to a degree. But again, the big dilemma that we've had in the last couple of years was the vaccine.
Right.
Emergency approval. They still, even today, they still haven't had a full approval in some of these vaccines.
You're right.
They're still under the emergency, approval. And although they approved a different brand, like BioNTech is not approved. The other one
actually approved here. Yeah, exactly.
but people still, just because it's approved now. No, it's a different, it's a different type that is approved, not the original one. Right. But that's another story, and we're not going there. I mean, obviously, we're not anti-FDA here, but at the same time, people do have opinions about it, and folks will be like, well, I don't trust anything that is FDA approved, or I don't trust anything that is not FDA approved. And you have both sides of the coin.
Sure.
It's just fact. Now you mentioned something about the company. Well, the medicine or current medicine or modern medicine does not really look too much into like the supplements the same way. But it's funny because during the pandemic, if you had COVID, part of the treatment for COVID was zinc, was vitamin D and B12 and vitamin C. Those were like your four, things. And some people even throw in magnesium in there. And again, whether you have vaccine or not, or you get steroids or you get, antibiotics for your inflammation and your bacterial infections, pneumonia stuff, those were some of the side treatments in addition to anything else they would do for you. I mean, there's obviously the ones that has infusions, but nevertheless, throughout this whole thing worldwide, those four items were like key elements in, I guess, overcoming. I had it personally.
Sure.
And that was actually part of the course of treatment I had. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had a mild, case, but even though it was mild, I was making sure that I had all those things in there to support the immune system and stuff. I mean, your body is designed to do certain things, but also you give it a little bit of booster, it's good.
Absolutely. But there was, and to your point there, when this whole pandemic started, vitamin C disappeared off the shelves, right? You couldn't find vitamin C everywhere. I know because I looked.
But you're right. They were selling the little boys down. You could buy a big container. Now you find a small for the same price.
Exactly. No, it was crazy. It was crazy how you could. So there was a huge segment of the population that realized the value of having vitamin C, which they may not have done that prior to this, right? But and again, you heard about zinc and you heard about vitamin D, but even that, it wasn't heavily promoted, right? Those things weren't heavily promoted. You didn't see it a lot on TV. It started to come out a little bit later towards the second year, but during the first year, you didn't hear much about it at all. So, but you're right. It's, you want to in these types of things, and I talk about it on my show. I don't talk about COVID much on my show, but I do talk about boosting your immune system regardless, because you don't know what's going to come. You don't know if the next pandemic is coming. You don't know if there's going to be another variant, and for the most part, I mean, it's pretty much safe to say that at some point, everybody's going to be exposed to it, right? It's going to be
it's already happened.
It could have been already happened, right? Some people may show signs, some people may not. But again, so if that's the case, then you want to arm yourself and you want to arm your immune system with everything possible to make sure that if you do get it or you are exposed, that it's not a really rough time for you. Because at the end of the day, what's the main thing that can kill a virus, right? Your immune system. Even if you get the vaccine is going to train your system to kill the virus, right? So you have to make sure you get your immune system up to par and keep it that way as best as possible, especially during this whole pandemic thing.
Oh, listen, I mean, it's been rough. And you're right. I mean, it's funny because there was very little discussion about the vitamin supplements in that time. Although in the discussions that you hear in all the news, your immune system keep coming up.
Right.
But the support of the immune system was not really as popular in the discussion.
Exactly.
Well, there's a reason, because remember, there was a big deal when you talked about those vitamins. You talked about like hydroxychloroquine, whatever that particular medicine, and the other, I forgot the horse medicine now.
Oh, that's ivermectin. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So they were talking about those, and that was not they were hot topic and maybe taboo topics. You could not talk about them much, but those went tied hand in hand with the zinc and the vitamin D and the B12.
Absolutely. They couldn't really talk about them because they were still the vaccines were still under emergency use authorization. So that means that you cannot use anything else, or else they would have to cut that off, right?
well, exactly. So that was, again, I mean, listen, there's politics behind things. There's different powers that maneuver certain things. And again, our shows are neutral, but
absolutely.
But these are facts, though. I mean, these are the things that we've experienced them, but for audiences watching and listening, I mean, this was the reality. And you really, I love what you said about your body. Doesn't have to do with pandemic. Your body needs to be strong because every day we're exposed to elements, and it could be a common cold. It could be just a wound. I mean, literally, you can just get a cut, and if you don't have enough system to do something about it, you get an infection that can turn to something very bad. So your immune system has to do also with your energy and everything else. I mean, there's a rain, you get wet from rain. I mean, that can be bad for you if you don't have enough, to sustain. So there's so many things, that your body needs that solid immune system, really awake and ready for everything.
No, absolutely. And as you get, and you have to understand that as you get older, right? We all know this, right? Because, as you get older, things start to diminish. So it takes that much more as you get older just to stay on par, right? Because, everything starts to diminish as you go, whether it's coenzyme Q10 or whatever it is. Okay. So you have to make sure when you get into those older years, you're getting enough nutrition, because again, things are diminishing, especially when you start feeling after 40, after 45, after 50, it's like, okay, I'm starting to feel it there,
I can relate to that, dude. Every decade things were better.
Right. Exactly.
The new decade things are getting worse. So I can tell you that much. I'm not even giving up. I mean, I did stay the age, but really, I mean, I feel great, but you do feel the difference.
Yes.
Your body does actually tell you, hey, you're not as young as you used to be. Take it easy.
Absolutely.
Take it easy, right? But so there's one thing that you mentioned about when you talk about age as we age, the level of supplements we need would have to be adjusted, because maybe
Yes.
adjusted when you're younger, you might need less quantities of certain
Right.
things. As you get older, or maybe even different supplements will have to be in place, because your body's going to need those, replacements or additions to your daily intake.
Right.
And now, what would you say about that, just briefly?
Well, first of all, one of the things that is tough, because you have what's called a recommended daily allowance, right?
Yeah.
Which was established by, we know that how it was established. But the problem with the recommended daily allowance is that it hasn't been changed in 30, 40 years. Okay. So, for example, they'll tell you that, a 150-pound guy needs, 95 milligrams of vitamin C, or they'll tell you 600 units of vitamin D. Well, we realize that those recommended daily allowance are way low. Keep in mind that they were established many, many years ago to ward off things like rickets and scurvy and beriberi and those types of things, which in, 300-400 years ago, people were dying of because they didn't have supplementation, right? So, or they didn't have access to good food. So now it's very difficult to get scurvy or rickets and those types of things. It's not impossible, but but now, as you're getting older, you have to realize that when you're getting into your 40s, 50s, 60s, those types of things, that you just have to know that things are diminishing. It's very easy to just not work out as much because maybe you don't have enough energy, right? You're not exercising, you're not getting motion. Your joints are hydraulic, they need fluid to move through them, and you're not getting that. So this is where you're going to start getting joint problems, right? Back problems, all these types of things. Well, and your body's doing everything it possibly can to maintain what's called homeostasis, which is a balance, right? It's trying to, and this is the issue. Now I'm kind of going all over the place, but one of the things that people have to realize is that your body is a self-repairing mechanism. Okay, your body is alive. It grew itself all by itself. It heals itself. It always wants to heal itself, and it's always trying to heal itself. But it needs this nutrition. It needs all these cofactors to do so. Okay, and if you're not giving it those cofactors, again, 50, 60 years old or whatever, in case maybe through wear and tear, this is where you start getting the osteoarthritis. This is where you start getting the back problems. This is where you start. So you've got to maintain the supplementation. You've got to maintain the nutrition, and you got to maintain the movement. Being mobile is huge when you're older. It's huge. I mean, I'm getting older, and I don't do this because I want to be, I want to live to 150 years old. I do this because I want to be mobile when I'm 75. I want to, if my daughter has grandkids, I want to be able to pick up those grandkids and walk around and play ball with them and do all these things. That's why I do it. I don't want to have to be in a wheelchair. I don't want to have to walk around with a cane, those types of things. So it's very, very important. Nutrition is going to play a huge part in that. And just being mobile and exercising is going to play a part of that. So those two things together, especially when you're older, are huge. So that's, I would absolutely maintain a program no matter what your age is.
And thank you for adding that. And it's a big value, because I just happened I was actually on a cruise ship, last week, and about 90% of the ship were pretty much, maybe average age was in the 60 mark.
Mhm.
Okay. And, what I noticed is the 90% of them, they were very active. They were out there, they're walking, and they're alive and doing stuff. And you talk to some people, and the secret is they take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And they've been doing a good job over the years. And you're right, wear and tear. I it's sad to always relate to a car, but a vehicle, brand new, looks great, everything is good. The more mileage, you need to actually maintain it correctly, for premium oil, premium gas, whatever,
Right.
to keep it running, optimum, speed and optimal, level. Same body. You throw in bad things in this, it's just destroying it, sooner, and before you know it, it's like it's not functioning properly, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
I mean, it's harder at that point to kind of come back. But if you have preventative approach to it, and you do the right thing by maintaining these additional, needs, and you clearly described it.
Yeah.
It needs the fuel.
Yeah, no, one of the things I say, and especially on my show, I talk about a lot. I say it's always easier to prevent something than it is to deal with it when you have it.
Yes. Perfectly said. I can agree more. I mean, that's a powerful statement, and that is actually the reality of things. Like everything else, even in medicine,
Mhm.
you mentioned something about people go to doctors because they want to solve a problem. So
Right.
because there's an issue,
Yeah.
but there is a whole world of preventative medicine. As a matter of fact, Dr. Cheryl Brian Bruce is one of our colleagues, and she does her shows with iHealth Radio
Mhm.
here, and we had a preventative medicine discussion before. It's being almost lost as a tradition. People
Yeah.
go only when they're sick.
Right.
You don't need to go to the doctor when you're sick. You go to check in. You did
Exactly.
35 vials of blood. I mean, that's I'm telling you, that's about 2 pints of your blood. I mean, you probably were weak. It's not even funny.
It was crazy. It was crazy, but
Uh,
I'm surprised I didn't faint.
but again, it's a good thing because now you've done a full workout of everything
Exactly.
that's in your body, and you know what needs to happen there.
Right.
And it did help you because
Yes.
life
Yes.
became a lot better after that, right?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I was able to, and there was things that I had to work on that I said, okay, you know what, I'm a little deficient in this, so I got to work on that. And the good thing is I was working with a naturopathic doctor, and her and I were having a great discussion, and she was saying, okay, these are some of the things you got to do. These are some of the things you got, do a little less of this and do a little more of this, that type of thing. It was absolutely fascinating. And that was the only way I was going to get that because again, when you get your basic blood panel from your doctor, they basically go over the surface stuff, right? They don't go over what's underneath. And all that stuff is what underneath. Again, back to the micronutrients, the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids. Those are the things that are really making the difference. But the problem is when you do the basic blood panel at the top, you don't see what's going on under. Okay. You only see it when it comes out later, right? In a
That's a
form
problem.
as a problem, as a symptom, right? Because remember, really like the blood pressures and the blood sugars and those things, really those are symptoms, right? I know they're quote unquote, diseases in the textbooks and that type of thing, but at the end of the day, they're symptoms of something happening. Your body's telling you there's an issue here, okay? But if you can head that off before it happens by making sure that baseline nutrition is there, then you're putting the odds in your favor.
Well, thank you. One thing I wanted to add, just that talking about doctors, it is. I have a super doctor personally. I
Mhm.
love him, and one thing about him, he does actually request those things on his
Great,
own.
that's
Like,
fantastic.
he goes to the DNL level, and anyone watching and listening, if your doctor is not doing, you can ask.
Yeah, yeah,
And you should ask. Like, I want to do this. He can literally now through the DNA test and stuff, you can go and check out 10 years at any risk in the next 10 years, whether you're going to have any inclination to have diabetes, cancer, and so on and so forth.
sure,
And you can tell that from your blood work,
sure.
I mean, but you have to prescribe those things. Your doctor has to write those scripts for those specific tests, and you'll get those things. And that's a big deal. And by the way, insurance will cover it if the doctor prescribes it.
Well, right, but you're right, and the person has to ask for it though, and this is the whole process of asking the questions, right? Again, people, a lot of people don't like to be in a doctor's office. They want to go in and get out. Okay, am I good? Am I, and then they'll run out. And I completely understand that, but at the same time, you want to know what's going on. So if you can request that, even something as simple as a vitamin D test, right? Vitamin D, you want to know where your vitamin D level is. It's very important, especially during the winter months. Because if you don't know where your vitamin D level is, you don't know how much to take, you don't know how boosted your immune system is going to be. So you need to ask those questions. And if you do have an issue, and I always tell everybody this, if you do have an issue, ask, okay, what can I do? What can I do on my end? Work with your doctor. What can I do to meet you 50-50? Maybe I don't want to be on a medication. So what are the steps I can take? Or if you're on a medication, what can I do to help eventually wean my way off of this medication? That's what you call taking responsibility for your health. And I think it's very important. I think more people need to do that.
Well, that's powerful also as an advice. And I think, people can take it to the bank. That works. Well, you mentioned something very important, and I can relate to it because I turned 50 this year, but prior to 45, I didn't believe in supplements. I mean, I told you about Herbalife back in the days, but I'm like, okay, what do I need this for? I eat pretty good, vegetables and stuff. It's part of my diet, but I didn't realize it until more recently that my vitamin D levels were low. My B12 levels were low.
Wow.
And so when I was, going to, and that's why I said I love my doctor, because he got into a deep dive and looked at all the stuff, the
That's
spectrum
great.
and stuff. Then I realized my deficiencies and, in my blood and
Yeah.
what I needed to do. That's when I started doing the supplements
Okay.
personally.
Okay.
And now, even during the pandemic, when I went back, the last physical was only a couple months back, I was like, my vitamin B12 was over the chart. I mean, it was like, anything over 1500, whatever was good. I was like 3500 at a time. And he said, just north of that, just keep doing,
Yeah.
but without supplements, I was literally on the negative side,
Right.
and
Right.
so this is true story. And this is me talking right now,
Sure.
on the platform. And it's not because of the show. I am telling you, when I share stories, they're real.
Yeah. Sure.
This whole purpose of this is to share the value with people and watch, our viewers and listeners.
Well, and in a story like that, my wife, again, my wife and I, we have a regimen. During the summer, we try to get as much sunlight as possible to make sure we get enough vitamin D. Okay. I generally don't supplement in the summertime with vitamin D because I try to be out and, a lot playing ball with my daughter and just doing things out in the yard and that type of thing. But once the fall hits, this is when we start our regimen. So we start our D regimen because, again, we live in the north and we know, it's impossible to get, right? So during the pandemic, especially, we were like, okay, D, lots of D, lots of D, lots of D. Well, my wife does her blood panel, fairly regularly, and her vitamin D was 110. Okay. And, I tell people to go over 50 to, 75, generally those are good ranges. Hers was 110. So I was like, holy cow. She was like, wow. And what we noticed was that her calcium was higher than normal. Why? Because vitamin D helps calcium absorb. Okay. So what I did was I said, okay, your vitamin D is up there. I mean, not that she wasn't having any issues. There was no toxicity or anything like that. But I said, okay, let's bring down your vitamin D. Let's take less of the supplement now and let's see where we are. And sure enough, she got her blood panel again and her calcium went back down to normal. Okay. So again, these are things you play with, right? You look at them, you play with them. Oh, you know what? I gotta measure this. I gotta check this out, that type of thing. But, we wouldn't know that if we hadn't taken the test.
Well, that's the key, right? You said it. I mean, you got to monitor this.
Right.
And this is not something you monitor at home. Like, you're gonna,
Right.
do a blood test. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. I mean, you have to go to your doctor to request those things. And by the way, anyone with a primary care doctor should be able to even just call the doctor and say, hey, can I run these things before I see you and see where I stand?
Exactly.
The doctors will be more than happy to do this. Remember,
Sure.
A primary care doctor's function is to make sure that you're healthy at all times. They don't want you to be very sick. Very sick means you go to the hospital and go crazy, and that's not something that they actually promote. And again, some people may disagree with me on this opinion because they say, what, there's always that, well, they don't make money if they don't go to the hospital. That's the hospital side. We could talk about that.
Right.
But, and some doctors do work at the hospital, but at the end of the day, that's not their mission. It's literally a primary care. As the word says, primary care. Absolutely. They help you keep your health and preventative care and is in place, and you're not going to the ER all the time. Absolutely. Anyway, so I know we're running out of time here, but I do want to cover one thing before we close today. Cost. Some people may have the question like, well, how much is it going to cost me a month? I don't know if I can afford to have a supplement regimen, especially a good one, because I mean you can buy cheap vitamins, but you can buy some good ones. And based on your experience, what would be a good, range monthly cost for a good?
Well, this is what, first of all, and I do get this question a lot because a lot of people who budget is a concern. So what I'll tell them is, listen, we want to cover basic nutrition. Okay. So I would recommend at least a multivitamin, at least. Okay. If you can, if you could put one more thing in there, vitamin D3. Okay, those two things, because pretty much you're covering everything. You're covering your basic nutrition and you're covering your immune system and a lot of other things. Again, 3,000 enzymes that thing affects, right? So I said, if you can just do those two things, then you're going to put yourself in, and you combine that with the good meals and the exercise and that type of thing. You're putting yourself in a good space and you're putting the odds in your favor. So, but I mean, if you're probably going to spend, even if you, and again, depending on the brand, you're probably going to look at least a good 20 to 25, maybe $30 a month. Okay. I could tell you that the supplements that I deal with, you can, on those two things, you could probably spend maybe $35 a month on
Well,
just those two supplements. But they're, but at the same time, the company that one of the companies I deal with is a homegrown company. Okay. They don't, they're not in stores. They're not, they don't have that overhead. Okay. They're direct to consumer. So they can pass along the savings to the consumer. But, either way, if they can afford at least that per month, every month, because consistency is the key. If you can afford at least that, then, you're on your way.
well, I want to add one thing to that is that, there's no cost to health, right? I mean, it will cost you a lot more when you're sick.
Well, absolutely. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because at the end of the day, what is the cost? Because it's not just financial, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because if the cost is going to be much greater, at the end of the day when you're not taking responsibility and taking care, right? So you want to, like we said, we want to prevent. We don't want to deal with it when it's happening. So so people have to look at it that way. I'm doing this because at the end of the day, down the line, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to, and I may not have issues and I can run around and do everything I need to do. So you have to always keep that in mind.
And that is powerful because again, the key here is, first of all, $30, even $100. I mean, I know I won't sound crazy right now, but if you go to a doctor and go to a specialist and go to the hospital, you're going to spend a lot more than that and just co-pays and co-insurance. And to your point, you said something very beautiful earlier. You want to have your grandkids and play with them, right?
Yes. Yes.
How much, that's priceless, right? And so to get there, if you want to invest $30 a month or $40 a month in your health and keeping you in a better shape, I mean, there's nothing wrong. I mean, and it's so sad that we'll spend money on things that we might not need.
Exactly.
And we'll spend less on things that are, health, is vital to our life and health and the better living. And it's a sad statement, but a reality that is exactly right. People can be cheap, going to the gym or spending on their, nutrients and things like that, but they'll spend money on maybe drinking or cigarettes or, again, I'm not against all that. I mean, people have the choices. But fact is, if you can find the money to do that, find the money, make it, your way to cut something so you can get that balance and live a happier life. Now, ultimately, if you don't do it, that'll be a choice. Yeah. We all make choices in life and we live with those choices over time.
Exactly.
And to your point, if we get to the point where it's too late, now you got to deal with the, repercussions of your decisions. And then ultimately now you have to deal with severe outcomes. And those outcomes can be financial, health, and just happy living, which is something we all wish to live long, live healthy, healthy and happy, right?
Absolutely.
But we got to do something about it. So again, listen, our show today is just for you guys. If you're watching and listening, this is for you to help you at least put in perspective certain priorities. And this is just an additional thing you can add to your life. And, you don't have to take it from us. Do your own research.
Yes.
Go out there, look for things. I mean, that's how you started. You look, at things and
exactly.
And now you're sharing it, so it's important. And so folks, I mean, you know what to do. And by the way, if you want to reach out, to George, his website is georgebatista.com, right?
Yes, you can go to georgebatista.com. You got all my articles there. My supplement companies that I work with are on there. Everything I recommend. And my podcast is on there. Even videos are on this. There's a lot of information on there. You can search it, and the articles and everything are growing every day. And I want it to be a resource for people, and I want to empower people. That's really what you and I. That's what we do, right? At the end of the day.
Yes, sir. And by the way, thank you for doing that. I mean, I believe in that. That's my core. We have almost the same mission. Educate. I have educate, enlighten, and inspire and motivate. So it's the same value that we want to bring, and we're aligned. As a matter of fact, we're talking about maybe, having your podcast on the radio, and maybe that. Let's see, if that works. I mean, you'll have access to him as well throughout our platform here. But at the end of the day, take the best of this topic, and run with it. If you don't believe in us, do some other research and find out more, but just don't sleep on it. And make
Right.
sure you take an active role in your health, and
Agreed.
hopefully you live a happy life. And maybe we'll spark something today that, you don't have to thank us. As long as you're healthy, we're happy for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So any last, comments before we close our show?
No, I just want to, first of all, I want to thank you for what you're doing. I think again, your mission is, our missions are aligned, and, for helping people and being a resource for people as well. So I appreciate you having me on. It was an honor. Thank you so much.
Honor was mine, man.
All right.
Well, listen, folks, we come to the end of the show right now. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll be talking soon. Different show, different topic, different guest. Ciao for now.